If you've watched 5 Days at Memorial on Apple TV, recognize any landmarks? The visual effects supervisors from the series, Durst and Matt Whelan, join us now with more on how they transformed locations in Hamilton to look like hurricane-ravaged New Orleans. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So I want to differentiate between special effects, which we hear a lot about, and visual effects, which is what you do. What's the difference?
Thank you for asking. That's something that comes up quite a bit. And special effects are real effects, practical effects. So if you're on the set, and let's say you blow a car up, that's something you can photograph. Visual effects are effects that you cannot photograph. So let's say you're shooting a background and you're adding something to that in the computer, a monster, or in this case, Hurricane Katrina, that wasn't really there. That is done typically in the computer and added. So that's the distinction, and that is a visual effect.
So Matt, tell me about the process then. What locations in Hamilton were shot in Hamilton on camera, and then your crews worked to add the hurricane to it and the hurricane devastation?
Yeah, we built a gigantic tank in Hamilton, kind of downtown area. That was, and I say we, it's not Eric or I, it's the production team under Matthew Davies' supervision. And it was about 250 feet by 150 feet, holding somewhere around 9 million liters of water, which is a huge amount of pressure to contain. And that let us have something for the visual effects to build off of. So it had a whole hospital ramp, a whole side of the hospital, a piece of the hospital. And then we extended that through visual effects to include the whole town of New Orleans.
So when does your work come in then? Do visual effects work with the director before shooting even begins? Because you've got to know, okay, what's going to be needed and how do we shoot this?
Yeah, it's what's interesting about visual effects for, I think, both Matt and I, is that you're there from soup to nuts. So you're there right at the beginning, usually with the production designer and the director, and you're designing what needs to happen. So for instance, let's say you have a giant hospital in this case. So the question is, do we build the whole hospital, or do we just build part of it? And so we come in and say, you only have to build a part of it because the rest can be done synthetically. And then we do production. We're there on the set every day, and then we're also in post-production, where we usually finish right at the last day that everything is due.
And just the work that goes into it and the technology, because I mean, I recognize some of the landmarks from the series, and I'm like, how did they do that? Because it looks so convincing.
Yeah, so a huge amount of time was spent getting photography of New Orleans, of the area, trying to keep things authentic, obviously, because the story's so important. But we have super talented crews here in Canada and super talented or great locations like Hamilton. And so we wanted to obviously shoot some of it here. But the visual effects are often a stage of shooting the pieces that we can, or building part of the pieces we can through production design, and then extending, as Eric said.
So whole neighborhoods in Hamilton were used, along with there's a very large ramp, and it looks like everybody's going up to the helicopter. That was part of the props that were used in Hamilton, I guess.
Yes, for the helicopter, it was basic. For the helicopter, basically, it was a platform that was the top, and it was shot in the Matt, the name of the.
It was the Speedway.
Speedway out there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And
then everything else around it was synthetic. Yeah.
Right. I know there was lots of shooting done at the Hamilton Convention Center as well. When you're dealing with a true story, or a story that's based on true events, and especially one as tragic as this, does it feel different than doing, say, a fiction story where you're blowing up stuff and devil may care?
Sure. I think you have to. It was, especially, we shot some of this down in New Orleans, and it was emotional for the crew because they had lived it. So, and we felt that even at the beginning when we were in Toronto shooting, and in Hamilton, we felt the gravity of it, and that was an important thing, and that's why we wanted to be so authentic to it, especially with the lower Ninth Ward being just completely wiped out, trying to be as true as possible to the events and the tragedy that happened.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
one of the other things is we actually shot this through COVID. My wife's an ER doctor, and I think we all know what they were going through during the last 2.5 years, and that made it especially challenging to shoot. We were all masked and having to follow the COVID protocols, but also I think everybody understands this story on kind of a deeper level with emotionally with the healthcare workers.
Right. Well, Eric Durst and Matt Whelan, I could talk to you for another half hour here, but we've run out of time. But thanks very much. And again, your work can be seen and believed on 5 Days at Memorial, which is on Apple TV+.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We have to be realistic about the situation.